Hey there, gamers! Welcome back to the Game Shop's Basement, Grumpy Old GM's GM Academy, where we work to alleviate the Game Master crisis that we hear so much about in RPG news by helping you bring out your inner greatest GM. Definitely need more good GMs out there. So, today we're going to take things a little bit out of order because we had some response. Somebody asked a question, and really, just to cover the question well, all I need to do is just do some of these out of order, some of these styles of play. So Ryan Haley wanted to ask about high simulation style of play. So we will start that pretty much right now. So what we were going to do is we were going to do the other type of deep role player. So yesterday we talked about the across the table deep role player, and we'll get back to the other kind, the deep role player who role plays with your NPCs. But there are, many different play styles, and very few people are just 100% the same style all the time. I mean, life would be boring that way. Although the first one that we talked about was the map crawlers and combat junkies, and yeah, there are people that are just like that all the time, and they don't want any other kind of play. So let's get into the simulationists. Now, I was going to do this a little bit later because I was going to cover the most common kinds first, the kinds that people relate to the most. Oh yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, John's right, I see that. I see people like that. So I was going to cover the most common kinds first, and then kind of get into some of the more rare kinds. I mean, like I haven't made a pie graph or anything to show, which slice of the pie graph are you. But simulationists, we're not the majority. And I say we because I is one. Okay, that is my style of play. It's pretty much been my style of play since I was like 11, 12, 13 years old. So let's go ahead and get into it. So we are not the majority, and getting to be less and less, I think. But in a video from, I don't know, about a year ago, from Mr. Welch, the YouTuber who probably loves Mystara as much or more than I do, and his Mystara channel is incredibly awesome. That's Mr. Welch on YouTube. He did a video about a year ago where he was looking forward to whatever's going to happen next year with 1D&D or 6th edition or whatever it is that WotC's going to do next year with the main brand version of our game. And he was reviewing the previous editions and describing them succinctly. And 1st edition, he said, was a simulation. And yep, 1st edition was a simulation. So what do we mean by that? Well, a simulation, like the picture today tries to show the Matrix, a simulation comes as close as possible to being able to plug your player's brains into the Matrix. If the Matrix was Forgotten Realms, or Spelljammer, or Greyhawk, or Ravenloft, or whatever it is you're running, your homebrew world. A simulation comes as close as possible to simulating everything. Like, for example, most people, even today, have heard of encumbrance. And there was a time when I was nerdy enough, and, the young gamers around me in the 80s, when I was a young gamer, we were all nerdy enough. We had calculators, and we actually added up the encumbrance on our sheets. And we talked about how many pounds a dagger was. And we talked about how many pounds of food we were carrying and stuff like that. Now, I do not do that today. 40 years later, at age 51, I started playing when I was 11. I do not do that today. I don't see it as worth it, but I'm still very simulationist. We use a kind of a common sense encumbrance type system now, that if we can imagine it in the theater of the mind and it seems reasonable, it's okay, but we're not just going to let anything go. Really, you're carrying around 10 longswords and you don't have a bag of holding or any sort of, magic way to make it magically happen. Where are you putting them? Or it's like, really, you're carrying around, 1,000 pounds of gold pieces, really, and you don't have any bags of holding or magical giant strength or any way to explain that. How exactly are you doing that? So we kind of use common sense there. But a simulationist is someone who simulates every single part of the game as if this world was real. And so a player of mine at my table, both at my paid table and at my personal table before this paid DMing became a thing, he described my DMing once as, he said, John's a causality engine. So when people, present me with a situation as to what they're doing in the game world, I try to figure out what would happen if this place was real. I try to give cause and effect causality, a chain reaction. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, and try to simulate what would really happen. This is why, like, I would never cheat on dice rolls, all the way back to when I was a little kid, because I like to. We all play differently. Okay, you might, John, you're weird, but whatever. This is me. I like to pretend that if this world was real somewhere, if there was a multiverse, and I really was an elf, and I really was a mage, and this is really happening, would I live or not? I need to know. And so that dice roll has to be honest, at least in my mind, the way I play and think. I'm trying to simulate, if this was real, and the dice help, simulate that. So there are, lots of ways. I see I'm already up about 6 minutes here on this video, so I might break simulation into 2 parts, I don't know. But at least today we get into the basic idea of simulation. And the simulation is basically create the Matrix for whatever genre, D&D, Star Wars, Call of Cthulhu. Like, if that was real, now not everybody appreciates this. Not everybody's like, John, that sounds like a lot of work. I guess if you're not into it, it could be. Just depends on how nerdy you are. There's different levels. Gary Gygax said there's no right or wrong way to play this game, and one of the most consistent criticisms I've ever heard of me as a DM is stylistic, not technique. And it's just like, John is so deep into the lore, and John is so detailed. See, this doesn't sound like a criticism to me, but they mean it as a criticism because of what's coming next. I just want to get drunk on Friday and hit things. I just want to drink my beer, roll dice, and imagine that I'm killing things. And this is, I've heard some variation of this quote a lot over the years, and that's fine. That's their way to relax and enjoy our game. It's not really mine, but we all get our dopamine hits off this game differently. That's why this game has got such widespread appeal, because it can appeal to so many different personality types, so many different mentalities. So I can see the video timer here is kind of racking up. So I will talk a little bit more about simulation tomorrow, give you some specific examples. So I guess, today was kind of part 1 of simulation, like what it even is, what we're trying to do, and what I mean by simulation. And then tomorrow I'm going to give some more specific examples. I give the example of encumbrance today, but we'll kind of talk tomorrow about specific simulationist type examples and how, what a very nerdy game is like. But yeah, some people appreciate it, some people don't. I don't think simulation is the majority of people. I think there used to be more of us in the 80s and 90s, and maybe not so many now. But yeah, I was going to kind of save this one for last, or nearly last, because this isn't a very common one. But I'm just going to keep doing YouTube. We're going to get through all the play styles, and I've actually got some free and pay what you want reviews of stuff racking up too, because people are starting to approach me now with stuff. Hey, would you review this? Would you review that? So I don't know. I might have to do a second channel just for that, because that, I don't know if I. We'll see. Anyway, so we do have some table spaces available. You can find us at gameshopsbasement.com or grumpyoldgms.com for our schedule. Our Discord's down below. Patreon's down below. So instead of just hearing general things from me on YouTube, you could actually get personal coaching from me and some of my Grumpy Old GM friends over the phone or Discord. And we've got some testimonies, quotes of some of our previous students at grumpyoldgms.com. And all that information's down below. In the meantime, I'll see you around the gaming table.